March 18th, 1945. Near the Rhine River, western Germany. The fighting has moved past this village, but the noise hasn't faded yet. Artillery still thumps in the distance, a low, steady heartbeat rolling across the fields. Smoke hangs in thin streaks over the riverbanks. Burned-out half-tracks line the road, their metal skins blistered and peeled back like dead leaves. Oberfeldwebel Karl Müller lowers his rifle slowly, hands rising before the American infantryman even finishes shouting. It is not fear that makes him comply. It is exhaustion. Müller is 34 years old. He has been in uniform since Poland, France, Russia, Italy, back to France again. He has marched through cities reduced to skeletons, slept in barns without roofs, watched entire neighborhoods vanish under bombing that never seemed to stop. He has not seen a functioning factory in months. He has not seen a civilian who did not look hungry in years. Now he is a prisoner. American soldiers move him to the rear with practiced efficiency. No blows, no screaming, just firm hands, clipped English, rifles held ready but not shaking. They search him, take his papers, his watch, his sidearm. Someone hands him a cigarette. He hesitates, then takes it. As he has marched away from the river, Müller notices something odd. The Americans are relaxed. Not careless, not sloppy, but normal. One of them jokes with another about coffee. Another complains about wet socks. A sergeant argues mildly with a lieutenant about the route. There is no sense of last stand here. No desperation. No strain in their voices. For Müller, that is more unsettling than defeat. 2 days later, he is loaded onto a truck with other German prisoners. They drive west, not toward ruins, but away from them. The roads improve. Bridges are intact. Traffic moves in orderly streams. Fuel trucks, ambulances, troop carriers, engineering convoys. And then, for the first time in years, Müller sees something he does not recognize. Shops, windows with glass still in them, signs hanging straight. Civilians walking along sidewalks not shattered by shell fire. Children. He stares openly now, unable to stop himself. They pass through a French town, recently liberated. People are already reopening cafes. A woman hangs laundry from a second-floor window. A man repairs a bicycle by the roadside. Life continuing. One of the prisoners beside him whispers, almost angrily, "How can they live like this?" Müller has no answer. Weeks later, he is shipped across the Atlantic. The crossing is uneventful. No air raids, no blackouts, no depth charges rocking the hull in the night. When they arrive in the United States, Müller expects secrecy, barbed wire, darkness. Instead, the train pulls through towns lit brightly at night. He sees movie theaters advertising new films, baseball fields under floodlights, neon signs humming over diners packed with people laughing, eating, living. The prisoners press toward the windows. "Are they at war?" someone asks in disbelief. The camp itself, somewhere in the American Midwest, is clean, orderly, almost mundane. Wooden barracks, a mess hall that smells of bread and meat. Guards who go home after their shifts. Müller is assigned work duty at a nearby factory. On his first morning, he walks past rows of automobiles in the parking lot. Civilian cars, new ones, polished. Inside the factory, machines roar, but not from damage, from production. They are building aircraft parts, wings, fuselage sections, engines. The workers are not gaunt. They are not exhausted. Some are women. Some are older men. Many hum along to a radio playing swing music while they work. During a break, Müller overhears a conversation. One man complains about overtime. Another mentions he's saving up for a refrigerator. A woman says her husband is stationed in Italy, but she hopes he'll be home by Christmas. No one speaks of survival, only plans. That night, Müller lies awake on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. In Germany, the war consumed everything. Cities flattened. Civilians drafted into rubble-clearing battalions. Factories bombed until nothing remained but twisted frames. Food rationed to the gram. Coal counted by the shovel. The war was everywhere. Here, it is somewhere else. America, he realizes slowly, is fighting the war over there and living over here. That distinction feels almost obscene and terrifying, because it means something Müller has not wanted to admit. Germany has been fighting a war with its back against the wall from the very beginning. America has not. And if a nation can fight a total war while its people still go to movies, still buy cars, still plan for the future, then this war was never equal. As weeks pass, Müller speaks with American guards more openly. They ask him about Germany, about Berlin, about Hamburg, about the bombing. When he describes the ruins, the hunger, the cold winters without heat, some of them shake their heads in disbelief. "That sounds rough," one guard says. "My folks back home complain when the bus runs late." Müller laughs once, a short, humorless sound. It is not resentment he feels. It is clarity. The Americans did not just outfight Germany. They outlived it. And for the first time since he put on a uniform, Karl Müller understands that this war was decided not only by battles, but by the fact that one country could wage it without tearing itself apart. April 1945, POW camp, American Midwest. Karl Müller stops counting the days somewhere around the third week. Time behaves differently here. There are routines, but no urgency. Roll call, work detail, meals that arrive on schedule, lights that go out at the same hour every night, not because of blackout orders, but because people simply go to sleep. That alone feels decadent. One afternoon, Müller is assigned to a different work detail. Instead of the aircraft factory, he and a dozen other prisoners are taken to help unload rail cars at a distribution depot. The task is simple: crates, pallets, paperwork. What is not simple is the scale. The rail yard stretches farther than he can see. Tracks branch and rejoin like veins. Locomotives idle patiently, their engines chuffing in slow, powerful rhythms. Cars roll in continuously. Food, fuel, machine parts, uniforms, tools. None of it is damaged. None of it rushed. Everything arrives as if expected. An American foreman checks a clipboard, waves his hand, and the process continues. No shouting. No panic. No sense that a single delay might unravel the whole operation. Müller watches boxcars being opened. Inside, canned meat, flour, boots stacked in neat rows, crates stamped with dates that are recent, not scavenged, not salvaged. New. One of the German prisoners mutters, "This would supply a division for months." The foreman overhears and shrugs. "This 1 yard, maybe a few days." The words hit harder than any interrogation. In Germany, logistics had become improvisation. Trains rerouted around bomb craters, supplies stolen from one unit to feed another. Orders rewritten because fuel never arrived. Every operation balanced on a knife's edge. Here, supply is background noise. It simply exists. That evening, Müller sits at a long wooden table in the mess hall. The food is plain but abundant. He notices something else now. The Americans waste nothing, but they also do not count every bite like it might be the last. Across from him sits Gefreiter Ernst Weber, captured in the Ardennes. "I thought it was propaganda," Weber says quietly. "The factories, the numbers. I thought they exaggerated." Müller nods. "So did I. The truth is worse than exaggeration. It is mundane." Weeks later, the prisoners are allowed supervised trips into a nearby town. The justification is practical: labor assignments, medical visits. But the effect is psychological. They see grocery stores with full shelves, butchers with fresh meat, gas stations selling fuel to civilians, children eating ice cream. Müller stands on a sidewalk watching traffic pass. Cars flow steadily, unconcerned. No military police waving them through. No bomb damage patched over with wood and tar. A newspaper headline catches his eye. New housing projects approved. Housing. In Germany, entire cities no longer exist. A shopkeeper notices Müller staring and smiles politely, offering a cigarette through the open doorway. Müller declines, embarrassed, unsure how to explain that this simple gesture feels unreal. That night, back in camp, the prisoners talk more openly than before. They piece together what they are seeing. America did not mobilize by stripping its civilian life bare. It expanded around the war. Factories multiplied. Shifts increased. Women entered the workforce. But the system absorbed the strain. No single failure mattered. No city's destruction would cripple the whole. This realization unsettles Müller more than the defeat itself. German doctrine had always emphasized intensity, decisive blows, rapid campaigns, total commitment. It worked when the enemy collapsed quickly. But when the war dragged on, Germany had nothing beneath the effort. No depth, no margin. The Americans, Müller realizes, built margin into everything. Multiple factories producing the same equipment. Multiple ports feeding the same fronts. Multiple routes supplying the same armies. If one failed, another took over. The war could not reach back and choke the homeland. It could only pull from it. One afternoon, an American guard named Sergeant Lewis sits beside Müller during a break. "You guys ever think you'd end up here?" Lewis asks, casually. Müller considers the question carefully. "We were told your country would tire," he answers, "that your people would not accept sacrifice." Lewis laughs softly. "My wife complains about ration stamps. Then she goes to work at the plant and builds bombers." He pauses. "That's the sacrifice." Müller has no reply, because he understands now. America did not ask its people to endure destruction. It asked them to produce. And production, unlike ruin, compounds. As the weeks pass, news of the war's end in Europe filters into the camp. There is no celebration among the prisoners, only a quiet acceptance. The outcome feels inevitable in retrospect. Germany fought until there was nothing left to fight with. America fought while preserving the world it was fighting for. Müller writes a letter to his wife, unsure if it will ever reach her. He does not describe the camp. He describes the grocery stores, the trains, the factories that never stop. "I think," he writes slowly, choosing his words with care, "that we misunderstood what kind of war this was. We thought courage would decide it. They decided it with continuity." He folds the letter carefully. For the first time since his capture, Karl Müller feels something like certainty, not about his own future, but about why the past unfolded the way it did. The war was not lost in Berlin. It was lost the moment Germany entered a conflict against a nation that could fight without breaking its own life apart. May 1945, POW Camp, Nebraska. The surrender becomes official with a notice tacked to the bulletin board. No speeches, no ceremony, just a typed announcement, translated carefully into German, posted between the work schedule and the camp rules. The war in Europe is over. Karl Müller reads it twice. Around him, other prisoners stand in silence. Some close their eyes. One man laughs once, a sharp, humorless sound, and then stops. They had known it was coming. What surprises Müller is not the defeat. It is the absence of collapse. In Germany, surrender meant chaos. Communications breaking down, units dissolving, civilians fleeing on roads clogged with refugees, cities already ruined now stripped of authority. Here, the announcement changes almost nothing. Breakfast still arrives on time. The guards still rotate shifts. Trains still pass beyond the wire. Their whistles steady, unhurried. America does not exhale after victory. It simply continues. That continuity becomes more unsettling with each passing day. Work details resume. Some prisoners are reassigned from factories to farms as seasonal labor increases. Müller finds himself riding in the back of a truck through rolling countryside that looks untouched by war. Barns intact, fences standing, fields planted in neat rows. A farmer directs them calmly, efficiently. He does not watch them with hatred. He does not rush them as if time is running out. At midday, his wife brings out jugs of water and bread. She thanks the guard for the help, thanks him. Müller cannot reconcile this with the Germany he left behind, where civilians had learned to flinch at uniforms, where scarcity turned neighbors into competitors. During a break, Müller speaks with Oberfeldwebel Heinrich Vogel, older, captured in Normandy. "We were told they would suffer once the war dragged on," Vogel says quietly, "that their people would demand peace." Müller shakes his head. "They never had to choose between war and life. They merged them." That insight spreads among the prisoners. America did not mobilize by destroying its normality. It scaled it. Factories did not replace cities. They grew beside them. Rationing adjusted consumption. It did not eliminate it. Women entered industry. Families adapted rather than fractured. The war effort became another layer of society, not a consuming fire. One afternoon, the camp commandant allows a small group of prisoners to listen to a radio broadcast. It is a local station discussing post-war plans, housing for returning veterans, factory conversions to civilian goods, education benefits. The announcer speaks as if peace is a project already underway, not a relief, a project. Müller realizes something, then that he will remember long after captivity ends. America is not ending the war. It is transitioning out of it. That would have been unimaginable in Germany, where the war consumed everything so completely that there was nothing left to transition from. In the evenings, conversations among the prisoners change tone. Less bitterness, less disbelief, more analysis. They begin dissecting the war not as soldiers but as observers. The Allies did not just win battles, they preserved systems, and systems outlast armies. One night, Müller speaks with Sergeant Lewis again, this time about home. "Think it'll feel strange when it's over?" Müller asks. Lewis shrugs. "Some things will. But mostly, we'll just get back to it." "Back to what?" Müller presses. Lewis thinks for a moment. Living? That answer lingers, because for Müller, living has meant endurance for years. For Americans, endurance has been built into daily life. The realization is not humiliating. It is clarifying. Germany did not lose because its soldiers lacked courage. It lost because its society could not sustain modern war without consuming itself. America fought a global conflict while maintaining the structure of peace. That paradox, war without total ruin, is what German POWs struggle to understand most. As summer approaches, rumors spread of eventual repatriation. Some prisoners worry. Others feel only exhaustion. Müller watches the sunset beyond the wire, the sky wide and unobstructed. No searchlights, no sirens, no distant explosions, only quiet. He understands now why the war felt endless from the German side and controlled from the American one. One side bled itself dry. The other rationed, rotated, replaced, and planned ahead. This was not merely a clash of armies. It was a clash of endurance models, and only one was designed to survive victory. Autumn 1945. Stillwater, Oklahoma. Karl Müller is allowed beyond the wire now. Not far. Just a few miles into town under guard. Part of a supervised labor detail repairing storm damage and clearing debris from a rail spur. But it is enough. The town is small, unremarkable, which is precisely what unsettles him. Storefronts display autumn decorations. A cinema marquee advertises a new film. Children ride bicycles along the street, weaving between parked cars. Nothing here bears the weight of 6 years of global war. A woman steps out of a bakery carrying a paper sack. She pauses when she sees the POW detail, then smiles politely and holds the door open for the guard behind Müller. No fear, no hatred, no sense that history has passed inches from her life. Müller realizes something uncomfortable. For Americans, the war has been experienced, but not endured. The distinction matters. In Germany, war had become the organizing principle of existence. Every decision bent toward survival. Every normal behavior felt borrowed against collapse. Here, war had been something added on top of life. Enormous, demanding, costly, but not identity-consuming. At lunch, the prisoners sit on crates near the tracks. A local man approaches, chewing on a toothpick. "You boys from Europe?" he asks casually. "Yes," Müller replies. "Hell of a mess over there," the man says, not unkindly. "Hope they get you all sorted out soon." Then he walks away, sorted out, as if Europe were a machine needing repair, not a continent in ashes. That casual distance is shocking, but Müller begins to understand it. America fought the war over there. Factories roared at home. Fields were planted. Children went to school. Cities expanded. The war shaped the economy, but it did not erase daily continuity. Back in camp that evening, Müller discusses the trip with Vogel and others. "They live in a different time," one prisoner says, "as if the war ran parallel to them, not through them." Vogel nods, "And because of that, they could think ahead, while we were only thinking of tomorrow." That thought grows sharper when American newspapers begin circulating freely among the prisoners. Articles debate labor shortages, housing booms, college enrollment under the GI Bill, consumer goods returning to shelves. There is no language of desperation, no sense of scarcity as destiny. The prisoners compare this to their last memories of Germany. Coal shortages, food cards worth nothing, cities flattened beyond recognition, plans that never extended past the next week. One afternoon, Müller finds himself assigned to a farm again, harvesting corn alongside an American teenager, too young to have fought. The boy talks about joining college next year, about learning engineering, about building things. Müller listens quietly. In Germany, engineering had meant weapons, fortifications, last-ditch efficiency. Here, it means refrigerators, tractors, bridges, civilian futures. That night, Müller writes in his notebook, a habit he picked up in captivity. They did not pause life to fight the war. They expanded life to include it. He realizes then why German intelligence assessments before the war had been fatally flawed. They had counted factories, ships, planes, steel, but they had not measured normality. They had not understood how powerful a nation becomes when its people are not psychologically consumed by conflict, when morale is not built on hatred or sacrifice, but on continuity. The Americans did not need total mobilization in the German sense. They needed sustainable mobilization, and that made all the difference. As winter approaches, repatriation lists are finalized. Müller's name appears. He feels relief, but also dread. He has seen what Germany will return to through photographs and stories from newly arrived prisoners. Ruins, displacement, silence where cities once stood. America will move forward almost immediately. Germany will need to rebuild the idea of normal life from nothing. On his last night in camp, Müller stands near the fence again, watching the lights of the town flicker on. Homes warming, dinners cooking, radios playing music. The war is over here in every visible sense. It ended not with exhaustion, but with continuation. That is the truth that stays with him most. Not American power, not American wealth, but American stability under pressure. Germany fought as if defeat meant annihilation. America fought as if victory was an eventual administrative outcome, and history favored the side that could imagine tomorrow while fighting today. January 1946, Bremerhaven Harbor, Germany. Karl Müller steps off the transport ship into a country that feels smaller than the one he left. Not geographically, but psychologically. The air smells of coal dust and seawater. Warehouses along the docks are half collapsed, their roofs patched with tarps and scavenged wood. Cranes stand idle, skeletal silhouettes against a grey sky. Everything feels provisional, as if Germany itself is waiting for permission to exist again. Müller's boots crunch on broken masonry as he joins a column of returning prisoners. No band plays. No officials greet them with speeches. A clerk checks names against a list, stamps papers, and gestures vaguely inland. Home is now an instruction, not a destination. As the train carries him south, Müller watches the countryside pass in fragments. Burned-out locomotives on sidings, villages reduced to uneven clusters of walls, church spires standing alone like accusations. Fields are being worked again, but by old men, women, and children. Movements careful, restrained, as if energy itself must be rationed. Germany did not just lose the war, it lost continuity. In the weeks that follow, Müller reconnects with what remains of his family. An apartment shared with 2 other families. One room partitioned by blankets, furniture improvised from crates. Meals defined not by taste, but by availability. Every conversation circles the same questions. Where can we get coal? Who has extra bread cards? What will happen next? The future is discussed cautiously, as if speaking too confidently might invite correction. At night, Müller lies awake thinking about Oklahoma, about electric lights, about grocery shelves, about Americans arguing over movie tickets while battles raged an ocean away. The contrast is unbearable and clarifying. Germany had fought the war inside itself, from the first ration cards, from the first blackouts, from the first bombing raids. Civilian life had not accompanied the war. It had been consumed by it. Every factory was a target, every city a battlefield, every night a countdown. Normality became something remembered, not practiced. America never crossed that threshold. That realization reshapes Müller's understanding of defeat. Germany did not lose simply because its armies were outmatched. It lost because it fought a total war against enemies who did not have to surrender their civilian futures to sustain it. Months later, Müller reads translated American reports in a local newspaper. Marshall Plan discussions, industrial output figures, reconstruction loans. The numbers are staggering. But what strikes him most is the tone. The Americans speak of rebuilding Europe not as charity, but as practicality. Stability prevents war. Prosperity discourages extremism. Normal life is strategic. These are not moral arguments. They are logistical ones, and Müller recognizes them. They are the same logic he saw in American supply depots, training systems and repair cycles, applied now to peace. Germany, by contrast, has to rebuild trust before it can rebuild roads, institutions before factories, confidence before growth. That takes time. Years later, Müller will tell his children about the war. But he will not start with battles or uniforms. He will start with a bakery in Oklahoma, with a woman holding a door open, with a town untouched by sirens, with a nation that proved something Germany never truly understood until it was too late. That the strongest war machine is the one that does not dismantle the society behind it. Germany mobilized everything and burned itself hollow. America mobilized enough and kept living. That difference decided the war long before the final surrender, not on the battlefield, but in the spaces where normal life was allowed to continue.